If you're running a done-for-you agency and trying to scale to 100K plus per month, hiring the right team is the only way to hit your goals without burning out. But most agency owners hire the wrong people in the wrong order and with the wrong systems, which is why they have diminishing margins, face insane workloads, and overall just hate the business model and cannot seem to scale to that point. I've personally scaled my agency to over $200,000 per month with over 100K per month in cash flow, a super lean team, and a completely hands-off fulfillment system. And in this video, I'm going to show you how you can stop being the bottleneck in your agency and build a team that runs without you. First things first, you need to build a hiring pipeline that attracts the best of the best talent on autopilot. You see, the problem is most agency owners hire reactively, meaning that they're only hiring people when they absolutely need them, and as a result, you're forced to onboard B and C level talent. Instead, you want a system that constantly attracts top grade talent and filters them in a completely autopilot way, so that way you're only speaking to the creme de la creme of candidates. Well, how do you actually build that talent pipeline? You see, just like how you attract clients and build up your sales pipeline, you do the same, but instead of trying to acquire clients, you try to acquire talent. This is why it's called a talent acquisition system. You need to actually position yourself as an elite agency owner. What do I mean by this? Well, top level talent usually are genuinely very, very passionate about honing in their skills, meaning they want to work for the best of the best. So having content in place, having really great case studies, and having ways to showcase the culture of your content, which is mostly done through how you communicate with the external world, is going to be the leading thing that makes top tier talent want to actually apply for your agency in the first place. Because the truth is, the best talent just don't apply to average agencies. Next is you need to look at your application process and have an automated filtering system. So that way the B and C players are removed from the hiring pool on autopilot. So what do I mean by this? The application itself should have a ton of pre-qualifying questions with conditional splits. So that way if a candidate does not have the right experience or give the relevant answers, you automatically tag them as a do not hire. The third thing that you need to have is a bulletproof multi-stage interview process to vet for people's culture fit, competence fit, technical fit, as well as career fit. If you're wondering what they are, it's actually relatively straightforward. So basically, when it comes to culture fit, just think about it as a vibe check, right? You speak to someone and figure out if this is actually a person you want on the team or not, right? Because if someone's like clearly not very client facing, it doesn't matter how good they are at the actual technical components. If you need someone to be in a client facing role, they could have the best technical capabilities, but because of the lack of client facing capabilities, they're just not suitable for the role. So they're at best going to be a B player. In terms of technical and general competence, you can give them tasks as a part of the multi-stage interview process for them to take away and do in their own time. Try to keep these tasks under 2 hours long in terms of duration so that you can assess a candidate's capabilities without overwhelming them and being forced to go into the paid tasks categories. And lastly, this is something that is definitely going to be a necessity as you guys scale, but in the beginning, you don't necessarily need this until you cross the 50 to 80K per month mark. And that is clearly defined roles and expectations for each job role that you're constantly hiring for. So in the beginning, as you guys are scaling from, let's say, 20 to 30K, the people that you're going to hire inevitably will end up wearing multiple hats within the agency, right? As you scale though, the roles and responsibilities will become a lot clearer. So in the beginning, the reason why you don't necessarily need this with very specific performance KPIs and that kind of stuff is because simply you don't know what you don't know and you won't know what they are yet. However, as you guys scale, it becomes mandatory and it's going to be one of the things that helps you guys actually attract and retain talent on the front end. So if you build these systems, you're always going to have a constant way to turn eyeballs into talent leads. So if you have these systems in place and constantly running on job boards, posting them on your stories, having career pages linked in the description of your content as well as in your bios, you're never going to run out of phenomenal people to cherry pick from, and you're never going to be scrambling for talent again. Which kind of brings me on to step 2, or maybe like the second phase of building your A team, which is knowing how to hire the right people in the right order. You see, the thing is, if you don't end up hiring or growing your team in a very specific order, your margins are going to absolutely tank. You're going to go from 80% gross margins down to 40. So please do pay attention to this because it's going to save your ass when it comes to margin optimization. I've broken down hiring in a specific order and I've grouped them by phase. So if you're someone that's doing less than 30K per month, you are going to be in what I call phase 1. So phase 1, how you go about acquiring clients is generally through either cold outbound or ads, right? So some sort of way in which you are actively reaching out to clients as opposed to the other way around. Meaning that you're going to be playing a appointment setter, a closer, as well as a service delivery type of role within your agency at this present moment. Now, most agency owners, they kind of make the mistake of choosing to outsource the sales component way too early. So what do I mean by that? It's that in the beginning, because you're doing all of the sales yourself and then also fulfilling yourself, what tends to happen is as you close more and more deals, you're spending less and less time on sales. So as a result, you think, okay, well, I'm just gonna get an appointment setter, I'm gonna hire a lead generation specialist and that kind of stuff so that I can actually focus on delivering a great result and building a great agency. However, what tends to happen is as you outsource these things and focus more time in the delivery aspects, what happens is the quality of lead gen and the quality of appointment setting drops and the volume of clients coming in drop significantly. So instead, the first role that you have to hire for should be someone to help you maximize your fulfillment capability. So for example, right, if you are a email marketing agency owner, the first role that you're going to want to actually hire is going to be a graphic designer. Why? Because graphic design is one of those things that is super time consuming, but the talent for this specific role is not only cheap, but also very easy to find in the market. Essentially, the first phase of hiring is for you to remove as many low value tasks from your own plate as much as possible, whether that be, scraping leads and validating them, cleaning them and putting them on a sheet, or graphic design. The point is you don't want to remove yourself from either department way too early. What you instead want to do is you want to maximize your amount of time spent on high leverage activities on both sales as well as fulfillment. In phase 2 of your hiring, and this essentially is going to be the transition from, let's say, 30 to 50K a month all the way to about 100K per month, is you're going to want to remove yourself from operations and fulfillment completely. At this stage, the main people you're hiring for your agency are going to be account managers, people like copywriters, designers, client managers, operation managers, customer service or client success. Anything that's actually going to remove you from communications with clients, fulfillment with clients, hopping on calls with clients, doing the reporting for clients, and ultimately just removing yourself from the ops side completely so you can focus on scaling the sales aspect. Towards the top end of the spectrum, so essentially once you cross the 70, 80K per month type of range, the next role is to essentially hire a manager that works directly underneath you to manage the rest of the fulfillment team. And essentially by training that individual up, you essentially complete the outsourcing of the fulfillment department, meaning that you can turn your sole focus towards driving more sales and closing more clients. This system, as you guys scale, will generally work up until, let's say, the 150 to 250K type of mark, sometimes even 300, just depending on your billable and how many clients individuals on your team can actually manage. And the final phase, phase 3, is kind of like that 200K plus per month type of range. And it's basically the phase that we literally just graduated from. And that is building proper systems and stabilizing everything across the agency, turning it from a small business to a defensible business with enterprise value, automated systems, HR systems, and 2 layers of management. So that way everything runs very smoothly, and it also helps remove what's known as key man risk from the business. So effectively at this stage, right, the biggest game changers in my opinion is essentially hiring more what I call like cannons or rifles as opposed to ammunition within the agency. Meaning you're hiring, let's say, a head of HR, right, to head up recruitment, headhunting, and onboarding of team members. You're hiring team leaders to lead individual teams under your COO, because right now you're just having way too many fulfillment pods, right? And your COO can't keep up with managing everyone. That's what I mean by essentially hiring more rifles or cannons into the business. You're hiring people that can think and solve problems independently and help you work on the business as opposed to working in the business so that you end up working on the business. And your role in the final phase is to essentially just lead the vision of the agency and work on things like expanding into new partnerships and that kind of stuff that's going to be able to drive the revenue exponentially forward. Now that you kind of know the different phases of building your A team, you can kind of apply it to your individual situations, which kind of brings me on to step number 3, which is creating systematic ways to always deliver phenomenal results for your clients. Because without these consistent proven systems, you're going to need to constantly be micromanaging your teams forever. Because you see, the thing is, hiring people isn't just, having bodies come in through the door and then like putting them to work. It's about training them to think for themselves and become truly elite at what they do. Most agencies hire people and just expect them to kind of figure it out and by throwing them onto the deep end. But even A+ players need an environment with structure for them to actually thrive. For example, having clear career progression timelines and career tracks within your agency. When we introduced this, we noticed a significant shift in team energy and team productivity. Essentially, to create this, not only do you need to give people a timeline, but also the various comp structures or the comp ranges that each role can expect, as well as KPIs that will be indicators for them to graduate from one role to another. You'll also need clear SOPs. So clear SOPs, I feel like, is something that sounds really intimidating, but really it's only intimidating because you're kind of putting a timeline in terms of how long you need to take in order to build it out, when really it's actually an accumulation of knowledge over time, which is why I refer to like the knowledge base all the time, right? Like how we built our knowledge base is obviously we put a shit ton of work in the front end in terms of recording Loom videos, creating documentation and that kind of stuff. But over time, it's about consistently contributing to that whenever a new question comes up from your team or from your clients, right? It's about taking the extra step and the time to record it and document it, put it in the knowledge base so that the next time that specific question comes up, you can redirect people to the knowledge base as opposed to re-answering the question over again completely. Other things that you're going to need are things like performance reviews as well as data-driven accountability within these reviews. So that's why I mentioned earlier, like KPI tracking is going to be really important, as well as having quarterly reviews scheduled in the calendar. One of the weaknesses that we had in the beginning was we were promising people quarterly reviews and reviews after probation. But the problem is because we didn't actually pencil it in the calendar and we were hiring so fast that a lot of the timelines just kind of got missed, right? And as a result, last year we had relatively high team churn. However, in the last, I'd say 6-ish months, we've really fixed that as an agency overall. And we've had literally 0 team members leave. And lastly, it's just about giving people the autonomy to have ownership in terms of what is it that they actually do and deliver. So for example, if your team always needs your approval in order to make any micro decisions, what's going to happen is it's going to train them over time to think that, hey, like, you know, I don't really need to think because Boyan is going to do the thinking for me because I can't push any changes anyways by myself, right? And over time, you're going to essentially turn your whole entire team into a bunch of ammunition that is trying to be fired by you, as opposed to having everyone having the capabilities to think for themselves, make decisions, and actually drive the business forward. And that's essentially how you scale without constantly needing to put out fires, and how you build out your dream team. If you found this video useful, subscribe, got more coming. And now that you know exactly how to acquire talent, if you want to learn how I'm consistently able to add anywhere from 30 to 60,000 in monthly recurring revenue on a monthly basis to my agency with no ad spend or outreach, you should check out the first video link in the description below. And with that said, I'll see you in the next one.